at some point have thought, my lower back is so weak when we suffer from lower back aches and pains. We felt it during ab movements or during deadlifts and we think, hey, I need to strengthen it, that's why I'm feeling it. But what if the situation isn't that our lower back is actually weak, but instead it's overworked, which is often the case when it comes to lower back aches and pains. The muscles there become overworked due to our daily postures, which have created mobility restrictions and underactive abs and glutes. So all that strengthening that we're trying to include, all of those supermans we're trying to do, may actually be perpetuating the issues, making them worse instead of better. Instead, you may need to be working on your hip and thoracic mobility while activating your abs and glutes to protect your lower back from becoming overloaded. The point of pain isn't always where the problem started, and feeling a muscle work during a move may not be because it's weak. Instead, it may be working when it shouldn't and becoming overloaded. So if you've been feeling your lower back during moves and thought, I need to strengthen it, try including these 4 moves in your warm-up routine instead. And stop overworking your already overloaded and overworked lower back more. Exercise number 1, thoracic foam rolling. If one area is lacking in mobility, we'll seek out mobility from another area to compensate. Because we often lack proper thoracic extension due to hunching over our technology or driving in cars, we tend to compensate for this lack of extension by arching our lower back during exercises. If you've ever felt your lower back during overhead pressing movements or bent over rows or back flies, you may actually be arching your lower back in an attempt to maintain a neutral spine because of limited thoracic extension. That's why it's key we work to improve our thoracic extension to avoid seeking out mobility from our lumbar spine to compensate. That's why I love peanut foam rolling. It's a great way to relax those muscles that may have become tight along our spine while improving our thoracic extension. To do this move, you can use a peanut, which can be easily made by taping 2 balls together or tying them in a sock. Lie on your back, placing the peanut in your mid-back with a ball on either side of your spine. Place your hands behind your head, pulling your elbows open as you relax over the peanut. Breathe and hold for a second, then crunch up and relax back down. Do a few of the crunches, extending back over, moving the peanut up your spine. Do not roll quickly, but actually hold as you relax over. You can also reach your arms up overhead and sweep them open out to your sides before crunching up to stretch out your chest further. But focus on breathing to relax as you hold. To progress this move, you can use something like the Simple Mobility tool, which is a larger diameter and will require more spinal mobility to relax over. Exercise number 2, bench hip and quad stretch with rotation. Tight hip flexors and a lack of spinal and hip mobility in general can lead to you overusing your lower back, as you then aren't able to properly engage your glutes or even your upper back or abs. That's why stretches to improve your hip extension and spinal mobility are key. Too often, if our hip flexors are tight, we end up feeling moves that should be felt in our glutes in our lower back and quads. Not to mention, we can develop hamstring synergistic dominance, where our hamstrings start to become overworked instead of our glutes working when they should. To address both limited hip and spinal mobility, I love this bench hip and quad stretch with rotation. To do this move, place one foot up on a bench or chair behind you and half kneel on the ground with that back knee down and front foot flat on the ground. Move out far enough that you can squeeze that back glute to drive your hip into extension while keeping that front knee aligned over that front ankle. In this half kneeling position, place both hands down on the ground, even with your front instep. In this position, it is key you squeeze that back glute to drive your hip into extension, or you lose that on the hip flexor stretch. Having your back foot up on the bench flexes your knee to stretch your quads at the same time. Then lift your hand closest to your front foot to rotate towards that front leg. As you rotate your chest open, don't just move at your shoulder. Focus on engaging your upper back to rotate your chest open. Reach up towards the ceiling, then place the hand back down on the ground. Then lift your other hand up to rotate away from that front leg. You may find it harder to rotate one direction, especially away from the front leg. Don't let yourself rock out on the front foot and cheat, seeking out mobility from other areas. Move slowly and work for about 30 seconds per side before switching legs. To modify, you can place your back foot on a block instead of up on a bench. You can also place that back foot on a wall if you don't have a bench. If you can't kneel due to knee issues, do this from a runner's lunge position, even modifying with your hands up on an incline. Exercise number 3, three-way hip circles. The best way to protect your back is to strengthen your glutes and your abs so they brace to help protect your spine so your lower back isn't doing all of the work. That's why this three-way hip circle activation move is so important to include. It not only helps mobilize your hips, but also works on your core engagement, activating your glutes, abs, and even obliques. Avoid leaning away or rotating your pelvis as you focus on moving just at the hip joint. In this drill, you want to pause in each position as the donkey kick will target your glute max, while the fire hydrant will target your glute medius, and the knee tuck will engage both your hip flexors, but especially your abs if you actually focus on drawing your belly button in as you tuck in. By also fighting the urge to lean away, you'll feel those obliques working to keep your hips level towards the ground. To do the three-way hip circles, start on your hands and knees with your hands under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. Flex your feet. Then keeping your knee bent to about 90 degrees, kick one leg back like doing a donkey kick. You may slightly abduct the leg to better engage the glute, but don't let the knee rotate open. Focus on stopping the move with your glute over arching your lower back to lift up higher. Pause here, even assessing if you feel your glute working. If you feel your hamstring, relax your foot or even kick slightly out. And make sure your hips stay level to the ground. Then without bringing your knee back down, circle it out to the side into a fire hydrant position. Don't bend your arms or lean away to try and get the leg up higher. Pull your knee in line with your hip, keeping your knee bent to about 90 degrees. Focus on keeping your lower leg about parallel to the ground. Don't let your foot flare up higher. Feel the side of your butt really working to hold the leg up. Pause here, then tuck your knee straight in towards the elbow on the same side. Pull your abs in as you crunch, and don't be afraid to flex slightly through your spine. Focus on those abs working as you drive your knee into your elbow. Pause and repeat the move, kicking back into that first donkey kick position. Move slowly, focusing on avoiding rotation or arching of your lower back as you kick back. Complete all reps on one side before switching. You can not only modify this move, but also simply add variety to it and a balanced challenge by doing it standing. You can also do a straight leg kickback if you really struggle with arching your lower back or your hamstring compensating. The key is making sure you feel your glutes working, because doing the right moves without feeling the correct muscles working may only perpetuate the problem over correcting it. Exercise number 4, pelvic tilt balance march. Improving your pelvic stability to properly be able to brace your abs during a movement is key if you want to avoid lower back overload and injury. It's why the pelvic tilt balance march is so important. It is far from an easy move, but it's a great way to engage your TVA or transverse abdominis while working your rectus abdominis and obliques to stabilize. Just make sure you advance it slowly over rushing it. You don't want your lower back to take over or your hip flexors to be doing all the work. To do this move, place a larger foam ball or Pilates ball right under the top of your butt. You want to balance on the ball, pressing down into it with your arms down by your sides on the ground, palms pressing into the ground. Bend your knees to about 90 degrees, bringing them into that tabletop position. Better have them slightly out than to tuck them in more towards your chest, as that will make it easier. Balancing here, slowly touch one toe to the ground, fighting the urge to rotate. Raise that leg back up, then touch the other toe to the ground. Focus on bracing those abs and not letting your abs dome out or your lower back arch. If it feels like too much, bring the ball up slightly higher. To advance from here, you may bend your elbows or even raise one or both arms off the ground. This will give you less of a base to assist with stabilizing. But only progress as you've earned it. Better to modify and really feel those abs working. Move slowly with this move and even consider starting without the ball to master that posterior pelvic tilt progression if you haven't already. Too often, our lower back becomes overworked due to hip and spinal mobility restrictions and weak or underactive abs and glutes. But because we consistently feel our lower back during moves, we assume it may actually be weak and instead try to do more to work it. This only perpetuates the problem. So make sure you're also working to improve those mobility restrictions while strengthening supporting muscles so your back doesn't become overloaded. Remember, where the point of pain is, isn't always where the problem started. And injury doesn't only mean an area is weak. Use these 4 moves in your warm-up, even just spending 30 seconds per move to start to help you avoid those lower back aches and pains. If you liked the video, make sure to like it, comment below if you have any questions, and subscribe. We're posting new videos each week.